right, so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about identity, and as a youth-oriented discussion is kind of what we're doing today. And so the question that I have, if I were to transform it into what I was thinking about in high school, would be, so where are you going to go to college? And I hated that question as a senior in high school, and that's kind of how I wanted to relate to you guys a little bit. But now as a recent graduate from college, the question I always get, whether it's someone I've met for the first time or someone that I'm meeting for the first time since graduating school, will be, so what do you do? And it's kind of a similar hatred of that question, because I don't necessarily feel like what I do completely defines who I am as a person. I'm a little bit more complex than just my occupation. And so there's two different responses I get when I tell people that I'm a street artist. And one of the things that I get when it's someone who's a little bit younger, kind of from a similar background as I am, they're in the same kind of generation, they'll be genuinely interested in what I have to say. They'll say, oh, so what kind of mediums do you paint in? What kind of subject matter do you like to discuss? But then when I'm talking to somebody a little bit older who's maybe a little more corporate-based, they'll kind of just, so you do graffiti? And it's really funny. That conversation leads into a whole, just an abyss of different things that it can turn into from there. But they see my facial hair, and they'll see the residue of paint that I have on my fingernails, and they make a judgment, and they think, oh, this guy goes and vandalizes public space. And I do, kind of. But actually, to be completely honest, I don't consider my work to be graffiti or vandalism. I consider it to be art. And when I have that conversation with somebody who's a little bit older, we'll generally go into a verbal chess match over what is considered art and what is actually considered vandalism. So when I go out and I paint, I think of three different questions as to what it's going to be like when I go out to that space and why I would use it. And so the questions are, what does it mean that I'm painting what I'm painting and where I'm painting it? Who does it affect? And then will I get arrested? And a lot of times people will say, well, the most important one is definitely whether you're going to get arrested or not, but that's not it. The most important question is absolutely, who does this affect? Why am I painting this here? And what am I trying to get out of my audience? So most of my street art is kind of based on social justice, and right now I'm doing a series that discusses homelessness and people that are struggling through homelessness and experiencing homelessness. And so one of the things I'm trying to play at and critique is how we do not notice these people when we drive to work. However, once I take a photograph and paint him somewhere on a wall near where he lives, all of a sudden people are like, oh, I know that guy. I drive by him every single day. And I'm not trying to get people to give them money. I'm not trying to accomplish anything other than letting you know they're there. Sometimes when you come up with an idea, people will take your idea and make it better. And I think there's a lot of incredible people out in the world, people that are just talking in TED Talks here in Austin, all over the world, that can come up with ways to solve homelessness. I'm not the guy to do that, but I will paint one of my friends on a wall so that you'll know he's there. And so I wasn't always interested in art, actually, getting back to the identity thing. I was actually more of a sports player in high school when I was growing up. And I was always a goofy guy, and I still consider myself to be a pretty goofy guy. But I was a football player and a baseball player, and that's who I was, and that's what I wanted to do, and everything else didn't matter. I actually kind of scoffed at the art crowd a little bit. I didn't think it was important. I didn't think that people in the arts understood pain and gain, hard work, and that's kind of ironic because that's like what I do now. And so my sports career was kind of cut short when I was 16. I had 3 days after playing in the SBC championship, I was diagnosed with osteochondritis dissecans disorder. And don't let the Greek fool you. It wasn't life-threatening or anything. It was just, it was significant enough to keep me out of contact sports. And so all of a sudden, I had my identity taken from me, and I was very bitter about it. And really, it was kind of one of those things that's a blessing in disguise. And so for 3 years, I really struggled with who I was, what my purpose was, and what I was going to do about not being able to play sports anymore. Because the way that I envisioned myself was the quarterback. That was my thing. And so I started to kind of get into YouTube tutorials. And I started watching things on Photoshop. And so one of the things I started doing was taking faces of celebrities and kind of just messing with them. And then kind of the more I learned in Photoshop and kind of playing with layers, the more I forgot about my lack of identity as an athlete, and that's where I started to develop my identity as an artist. And most of my stuff in the beginning was digitally based. I was a terrible drawer, and I ended up getting into photography, where I do some long exposure photography. I ended up doing a whole bunch of panoramic photographs that I would turn into these kind of surrealistic landscapes to tell stories. And, kind of at this point in my life, in 2 years, I'd gone to college from being this big machismo dude walking around campus all cocky with my varsity jersey on before a game. And then all of a sudden I come back and I'm a photographer and an artist. And all my friends are like, oh, cool. California really changed you, bro. So now that you know kind of who I am, do you really know who I am based off of the things that I do? And what I'm trying to prove is that you really don't. These are just some more of my work, some of my stencil stuff, and some of the paintings that I do, some in the lobby. And kind of the thing I really wanted to hammer home was, we don't necessarily become what our job is. And those of you who are athletes, those of you who are artists now, you aren't necessarily completely an athlete or completely an artist. There's a lot of opportunity as you progress through life and you learn things. You evolve. And as much as you want to think that you won't change or that you're going to be the same, you just couldn't be more wrong. The only thing that is certain is that you will change over time. And I think that as I progress, and I would like to urge other people as they progress kind of through life and they struggle with maybe some kind of identity crisis, something happens, good or bad, I'd try to urge you to have open arms and to kind of accept the things that God puts in your way and to really embrace it. Because what you might become from the things that you might not necessarily enjoy at that moment in time, they will define who you end up becoming, but you will always become someone else when the next thing happens. Thank you so much.